Alrighty. Well, here we go. Hunter Jackson. A lot of people know him from the Almighty GWAR or his wrestling career.
How dare you try to make a shame of me? Check out the struggle, scumdog of the universe.
Now you've been doing wrestling for a while, haven't you? How long have you been doing that?
About 10 years or so, yeah.
Okay. What got you into wrestling, and what was your inspiration for it?
Well, I've always been, since I was a kid, I was always super into wrestling and stuff. And when we started to do GWAR, like the slave pit where we were building all the GWAR stuff was close to the Coliseum. We could walk like 10 blocks to get to the Coliseum. So I would always buy tickets and we would go and see the Russians, root for the Russians. And they were always fighting the Rock and Roll Express. And the matches were always really super crazy. My girlfriend made us these shirts that were red with a big hammer and sickle on them and stuff. And this was in the Ronald Reagan Cold War years. And we would stand up and cheer for the Russians on like the third row. And it would be 6 of us all together. And sometimes we would have a plastic chain and like hold up the plastic chain all together and stuff. And we used to have a blast. But then when I started doing GWAR, and we would build a show around the album, you know, so we would create new characters and build all these new special props and costumes for this tour to back up this album. And then we'd do a whole tour of the whole country. And we want to go again, but we wouldn't want to do the exact same show again. So what we did was we painted a backdrop that was a crowd, like of ugly characters and aliens and superheroes and all kinds of weird characters. And it would be a crowd scene so that it's as if the stage is the ring and behind the ring is the other side of the ring, you know, with the crowd. So you're seeing the crowd at the show. And then we would stretch ropes across the front of the stage and have like have the show interrupted like 3 or 4 times during the show with an actual wrestling match. And we would do stuff like a lot of the characters would be involved. Like we had Beefcake against the Chernobyl cockroach.
Yeah.
And I would play the Chernobyl cockroach, or we would have Slyminster Hyman against the misogynist Wrecking Crew, who was O.J. Simpson and Frank Sinatra, and matches like that. And then we would have a thing where there would be a match with Odorous and the Sexecutioner against and they would come out and go, "Hey, Sleazy, you know, you haven't put us up since we got the belts. You know, you're so scared for us to lose the belts that you won't put us up against a real opponent. We want to have a real opponent. Come on, who have you got?" And so they would be there. They want to have a tag team match. And Sleazy goes, "I got the perfect opponent for you. I found this person in the alley hanging out before the show. You're going to fight the bag lady that was hanging out backstage before the show." And the GWAR's like all upset. "Come on, Sleazy. We want a real opponent. And besides, we need it to be a tag team match." So Sleazy would go, "That's okay. She's pregnant." And then the pregnant bag lady comes out and they have the match. And during the match, she has the baby, and it's like this demon baby that almost beats Odorous and Sexecutioner, you know, and stuff like that. So from doing fighting scenes and stuff on stage with GWAR for years and years, it was a pretty easy transition for me to start doing professional wrestling. And Odorous and I, along the way, there was one match where we were working a convention and we were doing it with the Misfits. And that was a funny thing. We toured with the Misfits so much. And I was always talking about, "Oh man, I would love to get GWAR in the wrestling ring. If only I could get GWAR in the wrestling ring." And I was talking to Jerry Only about that. And next thing you know, with all the connections and clout that the Misfits have, boom, they're on WWE. And I was
Yeah.
like, fuck, yeah, wow. And then we're touring with them. And it just so happened that when we did the show, I think it was it's at that club where Prince shot Purple Rain. It's
Okay.
in Minnesota or somewhere like that, somewhere up in the Midwest North area. But anyway, it was at that particular place, and the Misfits were doing a wrestling show right across the street. And so Randy Savage came to the show. I got to meet him. And you know, the funny thing about him is when he stands next to people like Hulk Hogan and all the other humongous wrestlers, he looks like a normal sized guy. But when you meet him in real life, he's a Goliath. When I shook his hand, it was like a baseball mitt, you know? It was crazy. But, you know, I've always been super into wrestling, and it was an easy transition to get over into it from after I split from GWAR. When I went and lived in Philadelphia for a little while, I dabbled in it a little bit, but never really got started. And then I came out here to California, and I was hanging out with the Radioactive Chicken Heads, and there was one of their members was getting married. Two of their members were getting married to each other, and they were going to have a big wedding party in Las Vegas, and there was going to be wrestling there. And I was like, really? Wrestling? Is it possible for me to actually get involved? And they called the dude up, and he was like, sure, yeah. Because that's how I first met Sin Bodhi. Because Sin Bodhi is the kind of guy that, like, when he puts together a show, if you ask him to be on the show, he'll find a place. He'll squeeze you in there somewhere, you know. And his shows are always have so much shit going on. But so he put me on that show, and I wrestled against this guy Alcatraz, his gimmick is like he's supposed to be the baddest inmate in the prison or something like that. And his arms are like as big around as my thigh, you know.
Oh man.
And we had like a little sort of goof around match that was supposed to lead up to another bigger match and stuff, which did, in which he broke my fucking arm, but that's a whole nother story. But that's how I first got involved in wrestling. And once I started doing it with Sin Bodhi, he started to hook me up with people like I worked out at Rikishi's school for a little bit. And then I got to work out with Brian Kendrick's school, which I highly recommend. It's called Santino Brothers. And to all those people out there who want to get involved in wrestling, that's the single most important thing is you got to get trained, and you got to train with somebody who knows what they're doing, because there are plenty of guys out there that work shows every week, you know, and they teach a school or whatever, but, you know, they might not necessarily be doing you any favors, you know. But Brian Kendrick's school was super fucking awesome. You know, he had a lot of guys will say, okay, come, you know, pay me $30 and you can come and train with me, you know, and you'll play around in the ring week after week after week after week. And then you feel like, wait, you know, am I really learning anything? You know, whereas Brian Kendrick's class, if you sign up for the course at Santino Brothers, it has a beginning that is mostly about enough exercise to kill a normal human being. And if you survive that part, then you get into the real wrestling step by step by step, you know. And it is really a worthwhile experience. It costs money, you know, and it's a big deal, but you will get trained, you'll know what you're doing, and you'll be ready to work, you know.
Yeah, especially if it's what you want to do and you want to invest in that, that's probably the place to go, right?
Yeah. Here recently I've been doing lucha style.
Yeah.
And COVID really almost wiped me out. COVID itself, the disease itself was really I did get COVID, but it was like a minor cold. I'd had all my shots and stuff, so it was in and out. But what fucked me with COVID was they shut all the gyms down. Yeah. So for a whole year, I wasn't able to go to the gym, you know, and I'm like over fucking 60. I'm only 65. And for me to skip out on a full year of working out, man, that almost killed me to try to
Oh,
get back
sure.
into it again. Oh man, it was terrible. And then I hadn't even gotten back to my full strength, and GWAR asked me to go on tour with them, you know, and I was like, I couldn't pass that opportunity up to be able to go out there and show everybody what I'd learned doing wrestling and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And but I ended up in the hospital, in the fucking hospital, because doing that to the fullest extent, night after night after night after night, my scrawny ass old man body couldn't take it anymore, and I ended up in the
Yeah.
hospital. And it looked like I was never going to wrestle again. It looked like I was never going to be able to do crazy physical shit anymore. And I'd always said that, well, I'm going to do this wrestling shit as long as I can, and then when I can't do it anymore, I'm just going to concentrate on my artwork and stuff. But still, man, the wrestling is just so much fun. It's so much fun, and it's so much fun to get out there and connect with the audience and meet all the different wrestlers and hang out with them and work with them and stuff. It's so much fun. It's hard to stop. But this last Liz Fairburn, who was GWAR's manager at one point, she works this show. She runs this show called Lucha Vavoom, which is a
Okay.
really amazing show here in LA, that she only does a show. It used to be every month, but now she does like about 4 a year or something like that. And they're so fucking incredible. The shows are so incredible. She just got a residency in Las Vegas. So that means there are going to be shows in Las Vegas every month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I can't wait for that. It's really going to be fun. And she used to be GWAR's manager, and after that recent GWAR documentary,
Mhm.
she kind of reached out to me and said, hey, I'd asked her about being on Lucha Vavoom in the past, and she said, why don't you come and be on the show? I'm more in control of it now, and you're welcome to come. And I was like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure I'm up for it. If you hook me up with some training and stuff. And she was like, she felt like that there had been so much bad blood, or I'd gotten such a raw deal with GWAR, that she wanted to cut me a break, and give me an opportunity. And so I trained with Little Cholo here in LA, and I've been having a fucking blast. I've been training with them since like September, and we trained specially for this show. The guys that I was wrestling against were some of the guys I'd worked out with in at Cholo school,
Wow.
and we did a bang up, super awesome show, and it was really, really fun. And I'm looking forward. And I thought it was going to be my retirement show, to be honest, but I had so much fun, and I'm still getting better. I can't quit while I'm still getting better. So it marks a new beginning for me. It turned out not to be the end. It's a new beginning, and I can't wait. I'm super energized. I rebuilt my shit, meaning my armor, and
Yeah.
I'm doing new crazy lucha moves and stuff that I've always wanted to do but never really been able to. And yeah, it's I can't wait. This year is going to be really fun.
Yeah, man. And I'm super happy that, like, because when you said COVID hit and it was kind of like a down like mood for you and you weren't able to work out, and then when things opened back up, it like spiked you back up, and now you're doing it again, and you thought it was going to be a retirement and now it's not, and you're you're not retired from fun. And I love seeing that. So, and not to mention too, what's going on in is it February? What's that event?
Yeah. Well, Alex Red does this really super awesome show out in Florida. I've been on it one time before, and he had wanted me to come back, and we had made arrangements where I was going to come back in August, but the plane tickets were so incredibly high
Mm,
that he had to cancel me. And actually I was kind of relieved, because I'd been working out really hard, but I wasn't ready yet. And I was going to do the show, even though I felt like, I'm not sure if I'm like physically ready to do this, you know, but luckily, I guess maybe it was good that that show got canceled. And then shortly after that, Liz asked me about being in Lucha Baboom and set me up with working out with the Lucha dudes. And that beat me back into shape. It turned out that where they work out is an hour and a half bike ride from where I work. I work at my shitty day job is I work at an artificial limb shop where I work on artificial limbs and crap like that, and foot orthotics and junk. But anyway, it turns out that the place where they work out is in Long Beach, only an hour and a half bike ride from where I work. So I can leave after work, and that hour and a half bike ride helps beat me into shape to be able to do all this shit, So I'm in killer shape again.
Yes.
And I'm ready to wreak havoc. And,
That's awesome, man.
But hopefully Techno Destructo won't interrupt. He's hounds me all the time. And sometimes he has a tendency to interrupt my interviews.
I don't know, man.
Try to work his own agenda, but hopefully that won't happen this time.
I know you're gonna have to put the locks on and keep a guard out, and security cameras, everything. Do your thing with him. Keep him, keep him in check.
Yeah, that's a tough, weird thing. But hey, one of the main things I want to talk about today is I want to plug my website. It's called House of Hunter with an A, Hunter with an A.com. And you can check out, there's links to lots of wrestling videos and stuff. And I talk about GWAR and show a lot of the artwork and stuff that I did while I was working with GWAR and stuff. And I also talk about freelance jobs, newer freelance jobs that I've been doing. That was one of the good repercussions of the movie. That the movie was weird because I felt like I don't know. I felt like he kind of did me dirty in the movie because I opened up a lot and told him a lot of cool shit, and then he didn't use any of it, And he goes, he uses that close up of me. I hated, talking about how I hated Dave Brocky, but he never says why, But anyway, the good thing about the movie was that it opened up people's minds to wasn't like Dave Brocky's brainchild exactly, that there were a lot of people involved. To me personally, GWAR is synonymous with artistic oppression, and I feel like I felt like if I wrote a book about GWAR, I'd have to call it something like "Pay No Attention to That Man Behind the Curtain," because I felt like in a lot of ways that was what my relationship with GWAR was. They wanted to use all this stuff that I came up with, but then when it came down to it, they wanted to shove me under the table, and Dave Brocky was all like, "It's about me, it's all about me,"
Yeah.
And that's the main reason it wasn't a good fit for me. There wasn't enough breathing room. There's not enough room for me to be crazy in GWAR. I can't be as crazy as I want to be in GWAR because there are too many people going like, "Oh no, Hunter Jackson is going to do this and I can't take credit for it. This must be stopped." There was a lot of crazy shit like that going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you've heard me talk about before in interviews where I say, for me, being in GWAR is like being on the world's greatest basketball team, but you never make it to the playoffs because your own teammates are always stealing the ball right when you're about to score. And that was what GWAR was like. But you know what? I'm free. And that's what my story should have been in the movie, is that now I'm free. I'm free to do cool shit that I want. I'm free to do the artwork that I want, and I'm free to develop the character of Techno Destructo kind of like I want. So I'm having a blast. I'm having a really good fun time, and come along for the ride. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man, exactly. Like even in the GWAR documentary, there was a lot of scenes in there that did make you seem like, I won't say like almost a villain, but they did kind of make it seem like it was just like you talking always negative. And I seen in a lot of different comments that they interviewed members and they didn't even show these members at all. There's some members they even left out completely.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and like that girl Colette, she was in GWAR about that long, you know, and she didn't do jack shit except be gorgeous, you know. And then Danielle came along, and Danielle wanted to be a part of GWAR, so and she, you know, she hung out with us, helping us work on stuff for a long time, and then she goes, "Oh, this is what GWAR needs. They need a female character," and so she took the whole GWAR attitude and everything that we were about, and she put a female perspective on it, which is what made her so fucking awesome. And that's one of my biggest disappointments about GWAR, is that Danielle had so much more to say and she didn't get to say it, you know?
Yeah. And even with,
and it was,
I find that with you in GWAR too, you had so much to say, and without your, like the art, which was all you, without the art, there's no show. And that's how I see it. You were all the art, and then they obviously you need the music too. But what makes such a big GWAR show is the stage performance, the, you know, the atmosphere, you know, the fighting on stage, the blood, the, you know, the characters coming, the goofy characters, stuff like that. Like, and
yeah, and Dave was awesome, but so was Chuck, and so was Don Draculich, and so were all the other dudes. And right now, the funny part is Matt McGuire is sort of playing my role in GWAR now, you know, not just as the cyborg that fights with them, but as sort of like the main guy that pushes the art aspect of it. You know, he does most of the shit, and he's the one that like cracks the whip on him, which makes him the villain, just like I used to be the villain, because I used to crack the whip on him and say, hey, come on, we need to do this video, you know, call people on the phone. Hey, I know it's 10 o'clock in the morning, but it's your turn to come and do your video scene, you know, come and do it, you know, and that breeds animosity, you know. And so Matt is in the same situation I used to be in, where he's the one that has to crack the whip on everybody to get them get off their ass and, you know, be awesome. And it builds up resentment, you know, and I don't envy him that situation at all. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm not that interested in joining up with GWAR again, you know, is because I've been there and done that, and I know the oppression that I'm going to have to deal with, you know. One of the aspects of GWAR that really drove it over the years, and also was a big obstacle as well, was that there was a big division between the art department and the musicians. And Dave sort of nurtured that conflict in order to be the ruler, I guess you'd say. And so it was really, to me, in the early days, it was a real conflict between the artists that were creating GWAR and the musicians that wanted to take credit for it. But the way they are now, over the years, the evolution of GWAR, they finally sort of gotten to the point where the musicians are running the show. They're doing everything. They control what goes out there and all that. So I think part of it is part of the conflict, and part of the reason that we could never get further was because of that conflict. But slowly but surely, the other thing about it was Dave sort of in the early days, he wanted to bring in as many people as he could, knowing that he was going to discard most of them, you know. And that was where he and I started to not get along anymore, because I wanted to build a family. I wanted to build a lifelong relationship with these people and conquer the universe. I really did. And my idea was I wanted to create something that was sort of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but live, you know, and where the audience knew what was going to happen next and could sing along with all the things and stuff like that. So my original idea was we're going to do a soundtrack album, because one of the things I hated about Star Wars the most was the music. I hated the fucking music, even though they won an Academy Award for it and stuff like that, and tons of
Yep.
people like it. It just made me barf, and it came out right in the middle of the disco days too. And even though people don't really register that now,
Yeah.
it had a real disco flavor to it that totally disgusted, as a punk rocker, it totally disgusted me, and because part of the reason that punk rock happened was people couldn't stand disco, after you had the hippie era, and then the hippie era sort of got weird, when people realized, oh, drugs are bad, and stuff like that. And then you mean hippies mean bikers and things like that too, and then the hippies evolved into like the disco age where everything was all beautiful and fluffy, and I was like, what is happening to the world? I can't compute. I can't understand this, and then punk rock happened and I was like, whoa, this is more like it. Yeah. And that's where GWAR came from, but Star Wars was definitely sort of very disco-fied, and that was one of the things I really hated about it. I wanted to see, Road Warrior in outer space, that's the movie I wanted to make, and all like that.
Yeah, man. What was your favorite like movie that you guys did with GWAR between Phallus in Wonderland and Skullhead Face?
I like the I think I like the one with Cardinal Sin the best. What's the
the
Ragnarok? Yeah, Ragnarok is the best one, I think, just because that's the closest to the original science fiction-y thing that that we first started out to do. But the other thing that I really like about Ragnarok is most of it was made while the band was out doing X-Cops. So it was just the artists left in the slave pit, and we could concentrate on making the all the pieces for the movie. We worked on the miniature city, and I built the set that was inside of the spaceship and stuff. And we worked on a lot of model things and different things like that. And then when the musicians came back, they did a tour that they did a live tour that sort of told that story. And then when they got back from the tour, I wanted to have the more with the musicians involved. And I know that one of the biggest problems with GWAR is it's really hard to tell what the fuck's going on in the story. There is a story there. And like even now, when you go to see the live GWAR show, there is a story there. It's hard for you to figure it out, but there is deep down in there somewhere, And so this time I was determined, I'm going to get this story across. I'm going to get the audience to understand what's going on. So what I did was I had the musicians dress up as their character, and then I just interviewed them. And I asked them questions about the show and the story, and they had to come up with the answers on the fly. And that was so awesome, because one of the things I didn't like about GWAR was Dave wanted him to be the front man so much, and he only wanted them to sort of be like the background. And they never really said anything unless he asked them a question and then they answered with a couple word answer, And I really wanted their characters to come out, because the musicians think about the character of their character that they're playing, and they come up with their own crazy shit, So I wanted that to get out. So it was fun to be able to encourage the musicians and to let those characters come out and for the whole audience to see. And the other thing about that I really like is that it ends with that one Surf of Sin song, and that final ending of it is to me, that's the best thing that GWAR ever did.
Yeah. So that would be your favorite GWAR character you played too, then?
Cardinal Sin, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played him a lot too.
Yeah.
He was a really fun character. And in the early days, he was a TV evangelist. And I made this TV set that was like a puppet stage. And the idea was that Sleazy was teaching GWAR about American culture by having them watch TV. So we had on stage, we had this TV set, and there was a puppet porno thing that they watch. And this TV evangelist comes out and he's talking about the evils of rock and roll music. And if your child has been influenced by any rock and roll music, especially GWAR, it's not too late. Kill them now, stuff like that. And then in the show, Sleazy finds the TV evangelist. He catches him in a hotel room with a little boy, and GWAR crucifies him on stage on a Christmas tree. They crucify him on a Christmas tree. I think this was the special Christmas show or something.
Yeah.
So they crucify the televangelist on the Christmas tree, and then he comes back again on TV, and he's all bloody and everything. And he says that he's been resurrected by the power of your contributions. And he like comes busting out of the TV, and it was like a transformer where the TV sort of transformed around him, and he comes out as Cardinal Sin. He stood up into it, and the aerial of the TV is like Cardinal Sin's head,
Yeah.
So it's like he stands up and puts on the TV and comes out, and then he's a giant robot.
Nice.
And all that stuff is fun. That stuff is fun. I like to carry that over into wrestling now. I have a dummy of myself that I use.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, it's like I'll hide it somewhere, like behind a curtain or under the ring. And then when have all my shit torn off of me and I'm all beat up and I'm getting my ass kicked, I like try to escape. And either my valet or my tag team partner will hold me by the tail. And as soon as I'm out of, I'm running away, and as soon as I go behind the curtain, they'll grab the dummy, and then they'll come out with the dummy swinging it around by the tail, because the dummy is balled up like a cannonball position, I've got it. Hold on. Let me see if I can go get it without causing an avalanche. Here he comes.
There he is. Nice.
And this thing is carved out of a solid piece of rubber.
Oh wow, no way.
Yeah, I carved it out of one solid piece of rubber, and see, it's got the tail here, so it can be. I can't swing it out around in here now, or I really will cause an avalanche.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how it worked. So it's fun. It's fun to. I bring the fake blood and I'll bust my enemy's head open with my claw and eat their brain.
Yeah.
Spit it out into the audience and stuff. Sometimes they don't always allow me to do that kind of stuff, but if it's okay at the venue, I will.
Mm-hmm.
But and then I've got like lots of different weird tricky stuff I use. This is what my valet uses during the show to repair me.
Okay.
For emergency repairs in the show, and stuff like that.
Love it.
So it's really fun. If you ever get a chance to go see Techno Destructo wrestle, you definitely should. I don't know if it's worth buying a cross-country airplane ticket or not, but if I'm playing in your area, and hey, all you local wrestling promoters out there, I'm available. It just costs like you have to pay a little bit extra for my gear, to ship my gear, and to for plane tickets and stuff. But if you get me a plane ticket, I'll come and do a crazy wrestling show at your place.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm in like the Windsor area in Canada, like just across the border from Detroit. I'm not too far from that area, but
man, it's possible that there's going to be a Techno Destructo wrestling show in Detroit area.
Oh wow, really?
Like maybe in February or so. I'm not sure, but I think there may be. I know that guy's been trying to get me to come out there, but just like in the other situation, the plane tickets were just too damn high.
Yeah. Speaking of Detroit, I was wondering, you were a jail guard in Detroit, right?
No, I never. I was a prison guard for 8 years. That's true. And
Okay.
I lived in Detroit for a year. And I think Detroit is. I love Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's super awesome. I love that they're like, hey, let's get rid of these fucking trees and put up more plants, you know, and that there's like giant tubes and factory shit everywhere, man. It's
Yeah.
so awesome. It's so awesome. And at one point, when I first moved up to Detroit, and I got a job as a security guard, and I was babysitting this this huge plant that dealt with coils of metal that were half an inch thick that are rolled up like a roll of toilet paper, right? So I'm talking about a half an inch thick roll of steel that's rolled up like toilet paper. And they have a machine that does it, you know, that will take a half an inch piece of steel and roll it up. And then in the ceiling of this place, they had fucking cranes. They had railroad tracks, upside down railroad tracks in the ceiling. And then they had mounted cranes. So they were these upside down cranes zooming around, lifting up these giant rolls of steel toilet paper. And these rolls are like as big as a bus. You know, they're fucking huge.
My God.
You know? And this place, it was just so cool, man. In fact, oh, here's another thing I wanted to talk about. Let me see if I can find one. So while I was in Detroit, I started this. It's a comic book called When Heroes Roam the Earth. And it's about a female superhero beating up robots and shit. And the backgrounds and all that are in this I drew it while I started this while I was just working as a security guard in that building. So like a lot of the backgrounds that are in this thing, I drew from life when I was working and living in Detroit. Yeah, this is another thing you can get online at houseofhunter.com. So check it out. It's 48 fucking pages long too. It's awesome.
Damn. I'm gonna have to get me one for sure. I just saw, like, I guess like the new GWAR in Toronto. What was it in beginning? It was about a month ago. It was beginning of November, and I seen that they still do the comic books and stuff too. But I'm like deep down inside, I'm like, man, I'd really like to get my hands on one from Hunter.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to that clash I was talking about between the musicians and the artists. And they're trying to prove, oh, we don't need those guys. You know, we want to get a real professional artist to draw our shit, you know. Yeah. And so I'll tell you, and this, I'm reaching out to the fans. If you want me to do more GWAR comics, you're going to have to raise hell. You're going to have to contact GWAR and demand it, because they're not interested. They're not interested. They want to get a real artist to draw their comic. They want to get Simon Bisley or Frank Frazetta or somebody like that to do their shit. They don't want sucky ass old Hunter Jackson. They've been trying to prove they don't need him for 15 years, you know?
Oh, wow.
But hey, it's all good. And I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to stand here and say that they don't have the right to be GWAR. You know, I'm not going to say that, because they do. They've earned it. You know, they've proved. In fact, you know, I hate to say it, but when Dave died, it's like GWAR's biggest obstacle to success has now been removed. So now it's nothing holding them back, and they're ready to conquer the universe. They've got a new management company that is doing good things for them, and I foresee good things for GWAR. I really do. I hope I get to tour with them again. It would be fun. I had a great time. They were really good to me on the tour. Everybody was really nice. Since Dave's gone, and Don Draculich, he's such a big lie believer that he refused to get his COVID shots, so he wasn't on the tour. So there it was. GWAR with no Don Drakulich and no Dave Brocky, it was like heaven. It was awesome. I had a great time. It was really fun. And I hope I get to do it again. And, I wish them all the best too. But, here's one good thing that's on the horizon with me and GWAR is I've been working on a compilation book that they know about that is a compilation of every piece of artwork I ever did for GWAR all in one book. That means every comic I ever did, every t-shirt design I ever did, anything I did for the album art, and Mind Control Monthly too, because one of the big things that I did with GWAR that I think was really helped boost our success in the early days especially was I used to put out this newsletter called Mind Control Monthly that was mostly just newspaper clips and photographs and comics and art of the GWAR characters. And I would just take it would be like 2 black and white Xeroxes, and I would take 2 pages and fold it so that it would be an 8-page book, and I like had a commercial art background. I like studied commercial art and I have a college degree in commercial art, and which made me not want to do it. And plus all they ever did was tell me that I sucked and that I shouldn't do what I'm doing, so fuck them anyway. But I learned how to do paste up and stuff like that. So I put together GWAR's newsletter, pasted it up, and we had a Xerox machine and everything. And so I could size the art, change the size on it to make it fit good and make it look really good. And I did like 35, I don't think there were 35. I know there were more than 30, and each issue would feature a different GWAR character, to help get people to understand that it's not just the Odorous Urungus show. There's a whole cast of characters, a whole pantheon of cool shit that they need to learn about, and Mind Control Monthly, the idea was that this is going to control your mind and make you think only of GWAR, and it worked pretty good. It was a good way to get the word out, and I didn't hog it all up. The Techno Destructo issue was, I don't think there was a Techno Destructo issue until issue number 9, because one thing I really want people to understand is I'm not the only artist behind GWAR. There were a lot of people. Chuck Varga did a lot of really cool art. Don Drakulich was mostly about building the 3D stuff, and he's the one that researched and developed a lot of the rubber techniques and stuff that made GWAR so awesome, and then you had people like Bob Gorman. He's a really good artist too, and Matt McGuire. And then you had other guys like Dave Muscle was a guy who he was like the one that had a lot of practical knowledge about how to actually build stuff, so that when we had to do things like make a set that would physically work on stage, and he had the welding ability and stuff like that to be able to put it together. And like, for instance, with Gorgor, I made the first original dinosaur Gorgor, but Don Drakulich took it to the next level as far as what it looked like, and Dave Muscle built an inner structure that would hold all that stuff up, So it was a huge group effort. There was like 12 or so like people that really put a lot into it,
Yeah. How long have you known Chuck?
That was one. What?
How long have you known Chuck, like prior to GWAR?
I met him a few years before I started doing GWAR. I had just graduated, and I think he had too. He was an art history major, and he was funny because his philosophy was sort of like he didn't want to have to deal with the art classes, because then you have to deal with all these other students and the teachers and stuff. He was going to bypass that by just studying art history and then producing his amazing art that was going to change the world, and we started hanging out, and we had a lot in common and had a lot of fun together, and we used to go to see wrestling shows together and shit and play geeky games, and stuff. And next thing you know, we were doing GWAR. I started making movies. I made a movie called Captain Communist and the Ultimate Doomsday Device, which was a lot like Terminator. And Chuck played the Terminator that everybody is trying to kill, but all they can do is wound him. And so he gets more and more fucked up. He's like an android and parts are hanging out and all kinds of stuff like that. It was fun. But and the funny part was it came out before Terminator. So yeah, it was shitty. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, you really can't compare this. This is like a student film. What I'm talking about is a student film. But still, it had the same storyline and a lot of similarities to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator. And at first, then Terminator comes out and people are like, "Oh, Hunter, they made your movie," you know, because it even had stuff like I had a rubber tube, and they act like it's a pipe, and he hit him in the head, you know, and it just goes clang, you know, and it doesn't affect him. And I had the nunchucks. I was swinging the nunchucks around, you know, and he like comes at the camera and just reaches out and then pulls back. He has the nunchucks, you know, and stuff like that. And in the end, what inspired the movie was there was an airplane fuel tank that had been jettisoned and was in the middle of the woods, had fallen and was in the middle of the woods there. And we used that as the ultimate doomsday device because it looked kind of like a missile, you know?
Yeah.
And in the end of the movie, they set it off by accident. But the coolest thing was we made a paper mache earth like you would make in class, you know, one of those volcano explodes things. And I put in Virginia, you can get this stuff called Pyrodex. They used to load shotgun shells. And it's like granular gunpowder that has plastic coating. So it'll go off no matter what, even if it gets wet. And I actually mixed that into the paper mache and stuff. And then on each place on the globe where there was a major city I wanted to blow up, I put 2 wires that came off. And then I had a whole cluster of wires with tape on them saying what city it was. So as we were filming the thing, you take the 2 wires and stick them in the in the wall socket, and boom, that city blows up. It was really cool. It worked.
That's
really
awesome,
good.
man.
It was really funny.
Is
So
that
that's the kind of shit. Chuck and I had been doing that sort of stuff and working on projects like that for a while, and we really wanted to make this ultimate science fiction movie that was going to knock Star Wars dick in the dirt.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's how Chuck and I first started hanging out.
Yeah, just making little student films and whatever. That's awesome, man. And you and Chuck used to, if I stand corrected, would go to like Comic-Cons dressed up in your thing and run around and be like, "Oh, where's this executioner?" And he'd be like, "Oh, where's that Techno Destructo guy?" And you guys would have a match in the middle of it.
Yeah, I used to love working conventions with Chuck a lot. You know, when we both read comics, we're really into comics and stuff. And a lot of GWAR comes from comics, especially during that time. There was this British comic called 2000 AD. It's still out, and it came out every week. And Judge Dredd is famous. Judge Dredd was one of the amazing stories from 2000 AD. But it's just one. 2000 AD was packed full of amazingly cool science fiction stories. And they were so awesome. It was a big influence on GWAR, big time.
Yeah.
Like there was Nemesis the Warlock, and Bad Company was a really good one. A bunch of different really crazy ones.
Yeah.
That were good.
I got one question I've been dying to really find this out for a very long. I've been a fan of like especially 90s GWAR for a very long time. The Private Pain of Techno Destructo. That song came out on Carnival of Chaos in 97, but I've seen it be played live in videos in like 93, 94. Did you guys like record that song like years before it got released, or?
Well, there's a weird story behind that, because at first I was playing Techno Destructo, and we wrote the Techno Destructo song, which is the one that everybody's familiar with about, I came to this planet to get my men to conquer the world with them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And all that. So that part we had written and I was performing it. And then there was that controversial period where I split for a year, and that's when I lived in Detroit.
Yeah.
And when I came back, Don had sort of taken over the character of Techno Destructo. He was playing the character of Techno Destructo. And the reason that I'd come back was they had decided to be more serious about GWAR. And they were going to record an album and really go for it. And so I was coming back from Detroit to rejoin GWAR. And I thought that I was going to be able to sing the song on the album, but when I got there, they were like, no, you don't get to do Don's Techno Destructo now. You lost your chance, and all this shit. So yeah, and see that, there you go. That is a microcosm of what my experience with GWAR was like. Mm-hmm. So there were certain people like Chuck who said, hey, Hunter started this character, and all that. Don is really just wearing his shit anyway, so it turns out that we start competing to see who is going to be the real Techno Destructo, who's finally going to be Techno Destructo. So a lot of times when we went out on tour and stuff, we were actually competing over that character,
Wow.
And it was full on for real. It was very real. And eventually I won out because nobody can be as super crazy and as intense as I can, especially not Don Draculich.
No.
But
you're born into that character. Like, people see you and you are techno. Like, you're like, that's who you are. Like, Don could never, like, nobody could ever take that spot. Like, yeah, like, even, what was it, the techno song on Hello? That was Don, right?
Yeah. So Don took the same song and then he just rewrote the lyrics, and that whole part about women with chicks the size of Ethiopia, that was all him.
Yeah.
That was him doing all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And although I used to say, I think he says something, one of the things I used to say all the time was, oh, well, in the early days, I had a cassette deck. There was an actual cassette deck in Techno Destructo's armor. And when I came on stage, I was holding the Cosmic Control cassette. And through the power of the Cosmic Control cassette, GWAR will sing my song that I wrote last night while I was sitting on the toilet jerking off to the latest issue of Popular Mechanics, and they're going to play it right now. And I would put the thing in, and then the band would like act like they're under control and start playing my song.
Yeah.
And then the battle ensues, and during the battle, by the time that the battle starts going, I know the tape's going to have fallen out. So I'll go, oh my God, the tape's gone, and they would beat me up. I also used to have pairs of lights all over my armor, and I would flick a switch to change. I would come out and they would all be blue and green. And then when I would get pissed, I would flick a switch and they would all turn red. The red light would be lit. And but all the wires would always get torn out, and it just wasn't worth repairing. I actually had a couple of flashlights on my armor too at one point. And I was using these cheap flashlights that you could get at 7-Eleven. So we would be on the road. I could just go get a replacement easily and just fix it, But that was cool because if it was all foggy, I could shine it across the stage and it would make a beam, and into Dave's face. And then he would run into my claw, like
That's
a
awesome.
Mind control beam.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of crazy fun stuff like that.
Yeah. Was it your idea for it was your last character on We Kill Everything, Scrody Moon?
Yeah, Scrota Moon, that's another interesting story because it was when they were coming out with they were going to make 3 more Star Wars movies, a big announcement, 3 new Star Wars movies.
Yep.
So there was a big Star Wars fervor going on. And so Dave comes up with this character that he wants me to play, that he's supposed to be like a takeoff on Yoda, and his name is Scrota, right? And he's also, I don't know if you ever saw Jimmy Kimmel when he was doing the Man Show, and there's a part where they did a wrestling show, and this guy was dressed up like a penis, and then he had balls on his feet, like soccer balls that were on his feet, so that as he walked around, he was kicking the balls around. It was really hilarious.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do that with me, where I was in a thing where I would be a big penis, so my arms would be stuck to my sides, and all I would be able to do was waddle out there, and Dave could heap abuse on me, you know. So that's what he wanted to do. That's the character they came up with. But from my perspective, I was like, oh man, Dave had just gotten rid of Sexecutioner, you know, because there wasn't enough room on stage for Dave Brockey's ego and Sexecutioner at the same time.
Yeah.
So eventually Sexecutioner had to go, had to, you know, be scrubbed. So after we lost Sexecutioner, I was like, the band needs a bodyguard to fight these monsters so Odorous can sing.
Yeah.
You know? And so let's make this Scrota character into sort of a new Sexecutioner replacement that's going to be able to fight monsters. And not only that, I came up with a way that he's going to evolve during the show. He's in order to prove that he's cool enough to be in GWAR, he's going to get all fucked up. And then when the monster attacks, he's going to be so fucked up that the monster bites his arms and legs off. And then Slimenstra comes out and sews these gigantic cardinal sin size arms and legs on him, you know? And then he comes out and he's rampaging all around, and he's the awesomest GWAR character in the universe, you know? And boy, Dave did not like that at all. Plus, he had a crescent-shaped head where he had his balls on his chin. I moved the balls from the feet up to his chin, and then he had the dick on his head, which was covered up by his pointy wizard hat. Yeah. And then the end of the thing, he would whip the wizard hat off, and he had the huge dick, and he would spew all over the place and stuff like that. But I made two other miscalculations in creating the character that made it so Dave would not allow this character to go on. One was his dick on the top of his head was bigger than Odorous. And I didn't even think that was an issue at the time. I was just, if the dick's going to be on his head, it's got to be big, you know? Yeah. And then the other thing was Scrotamoon's sword is way bigger than Dave's sword, you know? And both of those two aspects really super pissed Dave off, and Scrota had to go. So Dave started this huge, like Fox News-esque misinformation program to try to get everybody to hate Scrotamoon. And that's the story of Scrotamoon.
Oh, damn. Yeah, because I always read about that era, and everyone's like, oh, Scrotamoon's like the most hated GWAR character ever. And
GWAR, Dave really worked hard to make that happen. But I'll tell you what, Scrotamoon is the most dynamic and most incredible GWAR character ever. And I hope I get to prove that one day. I don't know if I will actually be able to or not, but I hope I can prove that to the GWAR, 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 to the GWAR.
That's right. It's me, Techno Destructo, Scourge of the Universe. And I'm here. I understand that you were doing an interview with that insufferable art fag, Hunter Jackson, who's always doing all kinds of stupid shit that pisses me off. And if I ever manage to track him down, I'm gonna rip him to pieces like you never saw before. But meanwhile...
Watch when you're swinging that thing, or I'll make you regret it.
Yes, mistress.
And who's
Meanwhile, I'm here to answer your questions, to set straight whatever lies he was telling you when you were talking to him earlier. And to make sure that I don't step out of line, I've got Mistress Gilda Overman here to watch out and make sure that I don't fuck up.
Yes, I'm Gilder Overman for the women of Guam. I'm come here on this assignment to make sure this fool doesn't embarrass us.
My next appearance will be in Melbourne, Florida.
And who
I'll
will
be
we
wrestling for Alex Red, who I've wrestled with before down there. Not wrestled him in particular, but wrestled some of his minions down there in Melbourne, Florida. And it'll be on February the 11th. And that is when I will bring the gift of battle to you Earth creatures once again.
Do you really think you're ready for that, gearhead?
I'm going to try, mistress. I'm going to try my best. And I know that with your help, with your encouragement, I will be able to rise to new levels. After all, I am now studying lucha style. I'm thinking about changing my name to a more lucha name like Technico Destructo. My father was a syringe. My mother was a petri dish. And I am ready to dish out punishment to anybody. I'm not even sure who I'm going to fight when I go to Melbourne, Florida. But I hear that Eric Bischoff is going to be there. Maybe I'd have a wrestling match with him.
maybe?
You heard the challenge. Don't disappoint me.
Let's talk about my claw. Do you think it's big enough?
I don't
You
know.
know-
It should be bigger.
Do you
It
think
really aggravates me. It really aggravates me that many of these wrestling companies would want to discriminate against the handicapped by not allowing me to bring my claw into the ring. Don't you think that's ridiculous?
It is. They're skewing the odds. These wrestlers are just scared of a real challenge.
Oh, look how beautiful it is. Wouldn't you want this wrapped around your head?
Maybe. I'd have to go over there and find that out.
My favorite strategy when I get into the ring is to grab my opponent's head in my claw and squeeze it until their brains start to ooze out. And then I eat. I carefully pick delicately the most important parts of their brain, the parts that contain their wrestling knowledge, and rip it out. And therefore, I deprive them of their only possible weapon to use against Techno Destructo. Their wrestling knowledge, the only thing that they have that I do not possess. But then, before the audience's eyes, I'll eat their wrestling knowledge, swallowing the most important parts and spitting the rest out into the audience, into the very faces of their mindless worshipers. And then my wrestling ability suddenly increases tenfold, and I'm able to do things in the ring that I could never imagined I was capable of before. And that is the magic of Techno Destructo. And if you come and see me in Melbourne, Florida, or my other latest venue, Lucha Vavoom.
Lucha!
I feel something wet on my foot. Oh my God, I kicked over the bong. But I did a show for Lucha Vavoom this past Halloween. It was one of the most amazing shows I have ever done in my life. And the audience, half of their heads exploded before my very eyes because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. I had my special dominatrix for the evening, Chrome Girl, who was pretty amazing. She kept me in line and helped me work my way to victory against my opponent, who was Senor Lobo. And I got him. At one point, I had him in the spinning toe hold, which is one of Techno Destructo's favorite moves. I also got up on the corner, and my favorite move is the atomic fist drop, as you might imagine.
Mm.
I did that one as well.
Truly earth-shaking.
It sounds very earth-shaking.
And yes, there was blood. It was an amazing match. I seem to have survived somehow, and I think Senor Lobo did too. So I would imagine that I'm going to be facing Senor Lobo some more in the future.
Destroy him. It will please me.
My tag team partner was this strange individual. His name was, do you remember his name?
Whoops. To be fair, I was several Modelos deep, as you do at a lucha wrestling show. It was a fantastic and violent show, and what Techno Destructo brings to the stage is visually like overwhelming and cool, because it adds like an extra level of craziness to an already wonderful and high action sport.
What she said. Lucha Vavoom is a really great show. It's really fun. It has a weird structure to it where there's a burlesque dancer, and then there's a lucha match, and then there's another burlesque dancer and a lucha match. And when I say burlesque dancer, I know that you're thinking about a strip club, but this is no like a grind on you for $20 kind of a show at all. This is like an elaborate stage show where in one part these two flamingo dancers come out, and the next thing you know, they're cracking these whips and fighting each other with whips.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen one where Catwoman and Batgirl came out. They turned all the lights off, and the two were searching for each other with flashlights until they finally got down to the wrestling match part. That was pretty intense, believe me. And all kinds of other crazy shit. So if you get a chance to see Lucha Vavoom, and I understand that Lucha Vavoom is getting a residency in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
The House of Blues. The House of Blues is a crazy awesome venue. So you've got to check them out. I've wrestled in Las Vegas many, many times because I'm known by many names, but one of them is Freak Show Wrestling Superstar, Techno Destructo.
Yeah.
And I've wrestled Serial Man many times in Freak Show Wrestling, as well as Shin Bodhi himself. I even had a title match once against Shin Bodhi. I don't think I won, but I did have a title match. But Freak Show Wrestling never played at the House of Blues. I had many awesome shows there with Freak Show Wrestling and Shin Bodhi, but they never played at House of Blues. So if you get a chance to come to see Lucha Vavoom at House of Blues, you should definitely take it.
Don't miss it.
I'm gonna try. I think I might have to make my way there just to see Techno tear some shit up on the ring. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? But I heard that also from that guy Hunter Jackson. I don't know. He was talking some smack about you earlier.
What? Don't tell me. You're gonna make me cause an avalanche in here. I'm gonna tear this place down. That's right. It's me, Techno Destructo, and Mistress Gilda Overman. And we're here to tell you about House of Hunter. Because at House of Hunter, you can get all kinds of cool shit like this. This is a print of Techno Destructo and many GWAR characters that are related to him. This is a cover of one of the GWAR videos, some original art done by that Techno Destructo impersonator, Hunter Jackson. The reason I have this stuff is because I'm trying to track him down. This is a freak show wrestling poster that is inspired by Jack Kirby's art on Fantastic Four number 82. I don't know how I know that. This is the new Heroes Roam the Earth comic book. It's a story of an all-American superhero tearing robots apart with her bare hands. I'm sure it would be enjoyable to most human beings. And this is the special poster that goes along with it. All of these items are available at House of Hunter. But this is the best seller, the most significant thing that you can obtain is the foam rubber Techno Destructo wrench that you can get for your very own. If you beat your girlfriend with this, if you beat your kids with this, you can even beat the person in front of you at the wrestling show with overexuberance. They will all love you for it. The real ones are printed on both sides. This one is not complete, but all of them are hand silk screened by that pitiful slave Hunter Jackson himself. And you can even get one autographed if you like. I'll autograph it myself.
Don't hesitate. You can cause your own bit of destruction.
And there's other stuff too, like this t-shirt that you could wear to the GWAR show. Unfortunately, it's black, so it wouldn't show all of the spew. But if people who knew what it was saw you, they would know what you were about. I still, personally, I don't understand the strange obsession that human beings have with clothes. And this is the gem of all. The Techno Destructo Garlic Death Grip Hot Sauce. Guaranteed to kill vampires or your money back.
I've gone through my third bottle this week.
Get yours at houseofhunter.com.